right. We are getting a new seating chart today. New year. New semester. New seats.
It's a pagoda.
New topic.
And him. Not you. And her.
Are you in this class now? Okay. Stop calling people.
Yeah, it's not a nice word.
That's terrible.
All right.
Where's my name? Hey,
Uh,
it's not even the same. Are you bleeding? What? Where's that one? Oh god.
All right. There's the first 4 rows. Once again, if you're at the top of the board, you're at the front of the class. If you are on the right-hand side of the board, you're on the right-hand side of the Find the first 2 rows.
You don't know where it sits. Tyler, you're right here. Kendall.
And there's the back half of the file.
Congratulations.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Is it right there?
Yeah, right there.
Hey, you sit there. Ollie. Here, sit.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. Welcome to your new seats. Like I said, new semester, new seats, all that fun stuff. Yeah. Actually, since we're here, let's go ahead and I'll just think everybody's here.
What's in my old spot?
Okay. Really quickly. So a couple of things I want to talk to you guys about really quickly before we actually get started on what it is we're doing today, so that everybody knows. Some of you know some of this information already because you had me for world history. So you'll get to hear some of this information again, but some of it is going to be. I'll add in some new information for you so that people don't get turned over to the board. Okay. So, despite some misinformation that was given out at the very right before break, I did not have pneumonia. I did not have pneumonia. I thought I had pneumonia, which is why I went to the doctor's office to get checked. Because my wife had pneumonia, she was very, very sick, and that was not good. So I didn't want to get pneumonia because I've never had it, so I went to the doctor to get checked out. Which is very rare for me. I don't think I've been to the doctor to get checked out for being sick in probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years or something like that. I don't go to the doctor unless I'm like dying. So I went to the doctor, and it was a good thing I did. I went to the doctor, and you know they run all these tests and stuff on you to find out like what you have when you're sick. And I walked in. And the first thing that they did is they not right away. They listened to my breathing, and they're like, "Wow, you're really having trouble breathing." And I was like, "Yes, I'm not doing well." So they wanted to hook me up to a breathing machine to test how poorly I was breathing. So they took me in this room, and they gave me this little thing, and they're like, "All right, you're gonna blow into this thing as hard as you possibly can." And on the computer monitor, there's a picture of a fire burning out of control, and a firefighter. And your goal is to blow as hard as you can, because the harder you blow, the more water comes out and puts out the fire. So your goal is to blow really hard and put out the fire. And it, huh? No, no, it's just it's a computer program. It's just a representation of how hard you're blowing. So they do this, A normal person under normal circumstances can easily put out the fire, not a problem. So you have to be like, all right, go ahead and try. Yeah, I didn't even get close. Didn't even get close. It was like, it just like, it was terrible. And it just like and she's like, wow, that's really not good. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's hard to breathe. It's like, all right, well, we're gonna go in and we'll give you this breathing treatment. You gotta breathe through this mask for a while. Oh, it's terrible. And I'm sitting there and like I gotta hold the thing and breathe, and I'm like trying to text my wife and check Facebook and stuff all at the same time. And this is boring. And so I finally get done with that, and they're like, all right, we're gonna go in and we're gonna test you again, and we're gonna run the breathing test again. Okay. So, but before you do that, we're gonna swab your nose for the flu, to test you for the flu. And then we're going to send you for a chest x-ray to find out if you have pneumonia. I'm like, oh, awesome. This is great. And she's like, do you have one of the two nostrils that's sort of juicier than the other? And I'm like, yeah, the right one. And you probably want to bring in a wheelbarrow to get all the stuff out of it because it's bad in it. And so she's like, okay, so if you've ever had a flu swab, do you know what they do? Yeah, they take a big long stick and they shove it up your nose and swirl it around and then pull it out.
Ew.
That's what they do. It's gross, right? So that's what they did, and she pulls it out. She's like, oh my goodness, you weren't kidding. There's a lot of gunk on there. And I'm like, yes, I know. It's terrible. I can't hardly breathe. So she gave me the breathing. She went and tested her. She go put it in to run the test and gave me the breathing treatment. And then I went back and I did the little blow test again. This time instead of, I got, meh. A little bit better. Didn't touch the fire. So you still couldn't come close. So they sent me off to get my chest x-ray, and they tell me when I get back to just let them know I was back, and then I could have a seat in the lobby, and then they come and get me. So I did. I got my chest x-ray. Now I was really worried about the chest x-ray because if you get pneumonia can be really bad. People die from pneumonia. And people get it and can get it for a really long time. If you get pneumonia, you can get it for like 6 to 8, like it'll stay with you for like 6 to 8 weeks. It can stay with you for a long time. It's bad news. You don't want it. And I'm really worried about it. My wife had it, you know, like we live in the same house, you know, and like eat the same kind of foods and stuff. Like we share drinks and whatnot. I'm like, I don't want to get pneumonia. Don't give it to me. I don't want that. So I was really worried. And once you get pneumonia once, you're really susceptible to getting it in the future. And so like I'm like, I've never gotten it before. I don't want to get it now. So I was really worried about that. So I go in for my chest x-ray, and I'm really nervous, and they can bring it back. The lady doesn't say anything. She's like, all right, go sit back in the lobby. So I tell the people I was back, I was done, and I'm going to go sit in the lobby. And I'm like, okay. I think I sat down for a grand total of 45 seconds before the nurse comes up and goes, Mr. Bittner! Yes? Yeah. No, you need to come with us now. And I'm like, okay. So they walked me back. Now before, when they brought me back before to do all the original tests, they walked me back and the nurse is here and like I'm right here and she's walking me back and asked me, you know, like, oh, do you have kids? What do you find for the holidays? How long have you been sick? Ask me all these nice, polite questions and just have a nice little conversation with me. Now this time when she's bringing me back, I'm here and Jada's walking me back. She's like way down the hall, like running to get to the room. And she gets to the room and she opens the door and she steps like 3 feet back. She goes, that's your room. And I'm like, okay. So I walk in and she's got a chair on the far side of the room, the exact opposite side of the room. I go and I sit down in the chair. She goes, have a seat in the chair. I go sit down in the chair. She walks in, she closes the door behind her and backs right back up. So she's standing with her back right against the wall, as far away from me as she can possibly get. She says, Mr. Bittner, she's like, we got your test results back from your flu. I'm like, okay, it's the flu. What's so big about that? She's like, well, I don't know if you know this. She's like, but there's 2 types of flu. There's flu A and flu B. And most people get flu A or flu B. And they both can be pretty bad. You have both. And I said, I have what? She's like, you have both. You are unbelievably highly contagious. You need to like, she's like, you know, we're gonna come in and we're gonna get you some stuff to help take care of you. But basically, you're gonna feel miserable for about the next 10 days, and you can't be around anyone at all. I'm like, oh joy! I have 2 small children at home. How is this gonna work? okay. So, I called my wife, I called my mother-in-law who takes care of my kids, I called the school to make sure I had a sub, had to email sub plans really quickly to get everything taken care of. So, on that note, if there was some confusion over how to turn in certain things, like the web quest that you were doing at the very end of the year, or some of the little assignments that I had her do for you, if there was some confusion over that, over how to turn those in and get those to me, I apologize. I was not always the healthiest when I was sending emails and stuff back and forth to the substitute. So I may not have communicated things fully. So if you have something from the giver that you did not turn in, that you were given, whether it was the web quest, the rewriting of the story, something like that, you can turn it into me one of two ways. You can either print it off, or if you've already printed it off, print it off and turn it into a pile on the table, not right now, right before break. Or if you've not done that already and you want to turn it in electronically to my Dropbox, you can do that as well. Okay? Those are the two options open to you. Also, because I was so sick, so like going back to me being sick, so I went home from the doctor's office. I called my mother-in-law on the way home, told her I was coming home. She's there watching my kids. And I live in a townhome, and when you walk into my townhome, there's like the garage, you pull in the garage, you walk in the door of the garage, there's a small basement room over on the side. That's where that's like my man cave room. It's where I've got my 65-inch TV and my Xbox and my computer and my very comfortable couch that I like to sleep on sometimes. And that's my, and all my books and stuff like that. It's my little side room. I walked in the house, and then there's the stairs that go up to the rest of the house, the living room, dining room, bedrooms, all that fun stuff. I took off my shoes, and I walked into the basement, and I closed the door, and I called my mother-in-law, who was upstairs, and I said, I'm home, I'll be down here for a while. And I basically stayed in that room, other than like go to the bathroom and go get some more chicken noodle soup. I basically stayed in that room for the next 3 days. And I didn't really leave. I finally got clearance after a couple days to go up and hang out with my kids and play with my kids. But I basically stayed in that room for like 3 days. So I wasn't, because of that, I didn't make it back into school. So I know that we had some vocabulary quizzes we took right at the very end. We had a couple other things that, while you guys were working on projects, I was going to be grading while I was here. Because I was sick, I was not able to do that. And some of the other grading stuff that I was supposed to get done, I wasn't able to get done because I wasn't here to do it. I wasn't able to come in and get some. In fact, yesterday was the first day I was actually able to come into the school. Well, I came in on Saturday for like an hour. But yesterday was the first day I really was able to come in and get away from a lot and come in and take care of some things. So I want you to know right now, I apologize. I am very behind on some grading. But all grades have to be turned in by Monday. So everything that you have from me that I may not have graded or you don't see a grade for yet will be posted by Monday. You'll see it all by Monday, okay? So if you're one of those people who's constantly checking on there, you're going to probably see a bunch of changes. I don't have, there was a handful of superhero projects that I haven't finished yet, and since I don't have all of them finished, I don't post the grades. I don't like to post the grades until I have them all finished. So once those are all finished, those will go up. So that was a big project. We have a couple other projects that will be coming in too. So just be watching that over the next couple of days, okay? You'll start to see some changes. All right? But I just wanted to apologize that I'm that far behind on these things. I apologize. Okay? But I want you to know. So that, like, if you go and look on your grade today and say, oh, I've got an A-, and come your report card showing up, you've got a B, I want you to know why. Because there's still a bunch of things that because I was sick, I was not able to do. Okay? It was either that or give everybody C's, which I think I'm still thinking about doing. Should everyone is that something? Should everybody gets a C? No. What's average, right? Just give everybody a C? Ooh! I could, you know what I could do is since it's average, I could figure out how many we got.
A for average.
Well, how many people do we have in this class? 20.
A lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, 24, 27. 27. I could figure out like the middle group of you, and I could just like pick a group. I get like 3 A's and 3 B's and then everybody else C's and then 3 D's and 3 F's. That sounds about right, right?
No.
That sounds fair. I'll just put names in a hat and pull them out.
No.
Except for Connor. Connor's getting an F. Okay. So, all that being said, now we're all kind of caught up. So if you have anything that you need to turn, especially the Giver project, if you did not turn in to me your rewriting of the end of that story or your continuation of that story, you need to get that to me by Friday. I have to have all paperwork turned in by Friday. Okay? Yes.
So we turned in our web post. I think some people turned it into the sub.
Okay.
Did you get those?
Yeah, I have all that. If you turned in a physical copy to the sub, I got it. Now there were some people. Mostly, I haven't gotten any questions from this class yet. But my other class, there were a number of people who had questions of how they were supposed to turn that in. But I just want to make sure, in case there were any questions, if you still have not turned it in, you can still turn it in to me. I will not count it as late if you get it to me by Friday. Okay? Any other questions about that? Yes. If you have not turned it in already, you turn it in by Friday. Okay? Any other questions? All right. So, with the new year, right? We have a new year. We have a new semester. Right? We started a brand new semester today. Technically it started yesterday, but whatever. We have a new year. We have a new semester. You guys have new seats. So we might as well start a new subject. All right? Start talking about something different. We're going to move on to something we just finished up the Giver. So we're done with that. We're going to move on to something else. Okay? Now, I really want to move on. The project we're going to get started on really quickly. It's not going to be a very long one. We're not going to do a full unit on this. I'm going to do a full section of 3 or 4 weeks on something. But we're going to spend about a week talking about something and doing something that we don't get a chance to do very often in this class. Because Common Core-wise, it's not highlighted a lot in this class. And that is writing. But we're not doing argument writing. We're going to do some narrative writing. We're going to write a story. We're going to write a story. We're going to do some creative writing. This is something we don't get a chance to do very often. We don't get to creative write very often, but I like to do it at least once a year. So which one? Huh? Yeah, a little bit, but I mean like a bigger thing. I like to do a little bit bigger creative writing. So we're gonna do a narrative. And we're gonna start working on that today. Now, once we finish with the narrative, the next thing that we're gonna do, how many of you guys I think there's a lot in this class. How many of you guys have me for world history in this class? Okay, there's a bunch of you. In world history today, we just started talking about the ancient Hebrews and Judaism. For those of you who haven't had me for world history yet, and will have a 9th period, that's what we're going to start talking about today. Judaism and the ancient Hebrews is a very short section. And right after that, we start talking about ancient Greece. And because I like to keep things pretty much kind of like lined up together whenever I can, we're kind of line things up. So when we are done with this story, right about the same time that we start talking about ancient Greece in my world history class, we're going to start talking about Greek mythology in this class. Yes. So we're going to do some work with Greek mythology in this class. So that's going to be, we're going to kind of tie those two together. So if you have me for world history, you'll be learning the history behind some of the Greek stories as well as learning the stories themselves in this class. If you don't have me for world history, I'm sure that Miss Miller has already covered, for some of you has already covered ancient Greece or is about to cover ancient Greece. So you guys are going to get it as well, just not as nicely aligned because I have the power to do that. So that's what we're going to do next. But today we're going to start talking about narratives, about writing stories. When you read a story, what are some of the things that make a story good? When you read a good story, a really good novel, what are some of the things about that novel that make it really good, that make it memorable in your mind? Patrick?
The words aren't like
Okay. Okay, so there is a little bit different type of language in a good novel. Plot twists. Excellent. They're good plot twists.
Well, I like when books like aren't based on a true story or
Okay, when they're not based on a true story, they're so you like fantasies, so something not based on in reality. Yeah. So do I. So do I. Some of my favorite series are series of books are fantasies or high fantasies. Anything that has a dragon in it, I might read it. If it has a dragon in it and a knight, I'll probably read it. I like that kind of stuff. What else? What else makes good stories? What makes good stories? Kind of good characters, right? You can't have a good story with characters that nobody cares about. If you have a whole bunch of characters that are really flat and bland or all the same, nobody cares. Nobody wants to read it. A good climax. Something that kind of really brings the attention, really builds up the story. It's a really good climax. You need to have those. Today we're going to start talking about characters. We're going to talk about characters. What goes into making a good character. And good characters are extremely important. Without good characters, you can't have a good story. If your reader doesn't care about your character or doesn't understand your character, they don't want to read. Some people are really, really good at developing really awesome, unique characters. Characters that you either love or hate. Characters that you either want to see succeed and win, or characters that you hope die in the next 3 pages. Like, there are characters, some people can craft characters. Some people are so good at crafting characters. They can take an evil character, the bad guy, and make you fall in love with them. Like, he's your favorite character in the story. Some people can make you do that. Those are good characters. One of my absolute favorite series of books. It's a very, very long series. I don't recommend reading it for probably another couple of years because it's very long. It's the title of the series is called A Song of Fire and Ice. The first book is called A Game of Thrones. There actually is a TV show on HBO based on the book series. It's a more adult TV show, but the books are very, very good. But they're very, very long. But one of the things that the author, George R.R. Martin, does that is extremely unique is he creates amazing characters. His characters are so amazing that when the main character in the story dies in book 2, you continue reading the next 3 books. Because the other characters are so good that you can't help it. George R.R. Martin kills off more main characters than any other author I've ever read. It would be like, how many of you guys read Harry Potter? Or at least saw the movies? How many of you guys would see movie number 3 or read book number 3 if Harry died in book number 2? A couple of you? Do you think that Harry Potter would have been nearly as successful had Harry died in book 2? No. It was all centered around him. He was the main thing. Without him, the story fell apart. And yet, there were other characters, important characters, that did end up dying at the end, and people were sad but continued to read because the main central character was there. George R.R. Martin, I read an interview with him one time, and he said one of his favorite things to do, one of his goals to do when he writes a story, is to create characters so well loved and then kill them. He tries to do this. He wants you to absolutely fall in love with a character and then destroy them. When the one main character who, because I'm pretty sure most of you aren't going to read it at least for a while yet. When the one main character, Rob, when Rob dies, literally when he died, I was reading the story on my Nook. And if it wasn't for the fact that it was my Nook and not an actual book, I would have thrown it across the room. I was furious. Furious. I woke my wife up. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I go, "What?" And then I almost cried. Like, I was sad. Like, it was like my friend just died. This guy that I thought was going to win the story just died. It was terrible, and I was furious. And I said, I'm not reading any more of this. I can't read. I cannot believe he just killed him. I'm not reading any more of it. Anybody want to guess how long it took me to start up the next chapter? 10 minutes, maybe 10, maybe not even 10.
What book was this?
It was it's Game of Thrones is the name of the first book. This was in the second book. But I was furious. And even more furious in book 5, which I'm now listening. I've read the book already. I've read the books. I've watched the TV show. Now I'm listening to the audiobooks. The characters are that good. And I'm in book 5, the last book that's come out. There's one more coming, and I know already in one of the last chapters another main character dies. And I'm getting closer. I'm like, I know it's coming, and I just I can't stand it. I was even more angry when he died. I just couldn't believe it. Took such a good character, a main central character that people needed in the story, and killed him. Good characters bring a story to life. And if you have good characters, people will follow your story no matter what happens to it. Yes, I have that picture. I'll show it to you guys later. There's a post-it note where it's the series of books, and they're all stacked up. And there's a little post-it note, the little sticky things, the little page markers. And it's one on every single page where a main or semi-main character dies. And it's just it's tons and tons and tons. It makes it interesting. Because you never know what's going to happen to him. And nobody is safe. You kind of always do. I mean, the story, Harry Potter, is named Harry Potter, right? You kind of know Harry Potter's going to be around for the whole time, right? You kind of know he's going to die. Because otherwise, they're going to have to change the name of the series, right? Harry dies, and now they have to call it Ron and Hermione. So, I don't know. But you don't know what's going to happen with your character. You don't know. Your character's never safe. If they can kill off one of the most important characters in the series, they can kill off anybody. They can kill off anybody. You don't know who's safe. One of the so what goes into making a good character? What are good characters? What kind of things make good characters? That's what we're going to start talking about today. And then you're going to start beginning your story. Okay? I have a prompt for you for the story. So I have the idea, the setting, if you will, and the beginnings of the plot for your story. And then from there, it is entirely up to your creative geniuses to run with the story and create whatever it is that your little hearts desire to go into the story. But I have a couple beginning elements, a starting point for you. You can build on. But before we ever get to that, we need to talk a little bit more about what goes into making good characters. Yes?
Is this going to be like a 5-paragraph essay?
No, it's a story.
No introduction?
It's a story.
It's going to be like a book.
It's a narrative. It's a story. It's not. You're not writing an argumentative essay. There's no introduction, 3 main body parts, and a conclusion. It's a story. Is there an introduction to a story?
Yes.
Yes. There's always an introduction to a story, and there's always a closing to the story. At least most. So, character traits. Character traits are the things that make up characters. They are the traits, the things about different characters that make them important, that make you want to like them or hate them. There are characters out there that you loathe, that you do not like at all. Can anybody think of a character you don't like from a book? You've read it? Harry Potter? You didn't like Harry at all? You just don't like him. Okay, all right. And I don't know. That's not quite what I was looking for. Kendall. Oh, what? Mad Eye Murphy, the guy with the spinning eyeball thing. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have a character from a book you just can't say? Brenna? Okay, and you're not supposed to. Like his character, Draco Malfoy, his character is created for you to loathe his very existence. He is just. Now, by the end, they sort of try and make him a little bit nicer so you don't loathe him so much. But yes, I think so. All right. So character traits. They're the things that make up a character to make you either love them or hate them, or be indifferent to them. Whenever you're identifying character traits, when you're looking at a story and you want to identify character traits, you want to ask yourself a couple of questions. Sometimes character traits will be directly presented to you. What does the character say or do? What do they say? What do they do? This will tell you a lot about the character. What do they say? How do they say it? What do they do? Do they go and save the princess who's burning in the castle? Or are they the ones who put the princess in the castle and set it on fire? What do they do? What do they say? What do they do? When someone comes up and says, hey, there's a princess burning in that castle, they say, I need to go save her. Or they say, meh, meh. What do they say? What do they do? Tells you a lot about the character. What does the character think or feel? What does the character think or feel? A lot of times this is directly stated. They tell you how a character is feeling or what a character is thinking. You know this is the way that this character thinks. How does a character look? Now, let's all be honest for a minute. Does your physical appearance, maybe not yours particularly, but does someone's physical appearance affect the way that they are treated by other people?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Is that right?
No.
Not necessarily, no. Is that the way that things sort of work?
Yes.
Yes. If we lived in a perfect utopian society, is that the way things would work?
No.
No. Do we live in a perfect utopian society?
No.
No. Are there perfect utopian societies out there?
No.
No. There aren't any. The way that a person looks directly affects how they're treated by some people. Not all people, but some people. And the way that someone looks, people might treat them differently. You might have someone who does not like a person like that and is very mean to them. You might have someone else who's more accepting and forgiving and doesn't care and treats them with respect and kindness. But not everyone is going to treat them the same. Some people are going to treat people differently based solely on how they look. What do other characters think about the character? This is huge. If people don't like your character in your story, they're going to treat them differently and they're going to react differently. And how does your character feel? Let's take a little example of this. We're going to do just like a little bit of an experiment. So there's a character in Game of Thrones that I absolutely love. He's one of my favorite characters. So far he hasn't died. There's been a couple times where he's like almost died and I get freaked out because he's like my favorite. He's been around since book 1. He's my favorite character. He's a dwarf. He's a dwarf. And he at some point in time he's a dwarf, but not only is he a dwarf, he's a rather ugly guy. Like he has like 2 different colored eyes. And at one point in time he was in a battle and got half of his nose chopped off. He has a big scar in his face and he's missing most of his nose. And he's not a very he's a very described as a very ugly little person. Right? A very ugly little dwarf. Tyrion is his name. Tyrion. He's not treated very well because of how he looks. In fact, he's treated with so much disrespect that a lot of characters don't even call him by his name. They call him the Imp, which if you know what an imp is a small devil thing of evil. This is what they call him. They don't call him by his name. They call him an imp, a small evil devil. A bad omen, he's bad luck, he's bad news. Nobody wants to be around him. Right? Imagine for a minute that that's your character. That's the character you created. This small, ugly little person who people call nasty things and treat terribly. How could your character react to that? to that type of treatment? How could they react? They could get mad and kill the people who talk negatively about them. Yes, that is one thing that they could do. What else could they do? What's another way that they could handle that? Lindsay? Okay, so maybe he could find some way of making himself look better. Okay? What else? What are other things other ways he could react to being treated like that? I'm not asking how should he react. I want you to know how could he react. What are things that he could do? Some of them are positive. Some of them are negative. Killing the people who talk negatively about you, not the best strategy. But it is a way that some people can react. Let's see how. He can move far away and hide so that no one ever had to see him again. Jack? Okay, he could find other people like him and live with them. He could be extremely depressed and sad. What else is something that he could do? How else could he react? What's another way that people react when someone says something negative about them? He could kill himself. He could be, if we're going to go, he could be extremely depressed and take that route as well. It is something that could happen, yes. He could also talk very negatively about other people. If people are talking negatively about him, you see it as one of those things they talk about when you talk about bullying. There's a lot of times people who bully people are bullied by somebody else, someone. It's just one of those things. That's how they react to being bullied, is they end up turning that on somebody else. So he could do that. People are treating him terribly. He could treat other people terribly as a reaction. Any other ways that you can think of that he might react to people treating him negatively? You know, they say sometimes that one of the best things to do, and I don't necessarily know if this is actually the case, but if you ever have something that you think that people are going to make fun of you about, you know one of the things that they say you can do to sort of stop that? No.
I saw it.
You could make fun of it yourself first. Like, let's say you have something that somebody else might make fun of. You can quickly, I'm not saying that this is always the case, but this is the way some people react. Is instead of allowing other people to make jokes about them, they make the joke first. And if I've made the joke about myself, if I've already pointed out my own flaw, what are you going to say? If I've already referred to myself as the ugly little imp, is anything that you say back to me really going to be able to hurt me? Or going to be worse than what I just said about myself? No. So you can joke it off. You can laugh it off. You can make jokes about yourself. And you can laugh away some of this hurt, some of this pain. Our character in the story does a combination of all of these things. He does a combination of all of those things. There are some people who talk very negatively about them. He has them killed. Most of the time, he resorts to making jokes. He's a very funny character. Makes jokes about himself and other people all the time. Very quick-witted, very funny character. But he also he's very sad and depressed about it. He has a terrible relationship with his family because they treat him differently. Most of them hate him because of it. So he has the way you look. So when you start working on your characters and you describe the way that they look, think about how the way they look might affect how they're treated. Okay? If you wanted to have a hero, if you wanted to describe a hero, you have the main hero of your story, the person who's going to come in and save the day. What does that person look like? The person who comes in and saves the day. What does that person look like? What does that mean? What does a hero look like? When you think of a hero in your mind, what do you think? What do they look like?
Perfectly, like wearing like superhero costumes and their hair is done, and they're wearing like stage.
Okay. What else? Holly. Strong muscles, right? Think about all the pictures of the superheroes in the projects that we worked on. Did you ever see like a skinny, scrawny little superhero? I mean, Peter Parker a little bit, but even when even in other things, you know, when he has Spider-Man on, when he's in his Spider-Man costume, you can see he's got muscle, right? He's not big muscles, but he's got muscle, right? He's strong, he's agile. You don't really see like right? You know, it's your superheroes don't look like that, right? What do you think about when you somebody was wanting to describe a character that's innocent? What would a character who's innocent look like? What does innocence look like? Ethan. Okay. Jack, what were you gonna say? Oh, okay. Innocence. What is innocence?
Really
Small. Yeah. What else? Defenseless. Jay. Scrawny. Shy. Kind of quiet, shy. Those are the kind of things when we think of innocent. You know what I always think of whenever I think of the term innocent? Like a very small, young, little blonde-haired girl with pigtails. That's the image that comes into my mind. When I think of innocent, I think of like a little kid who's like looking up at you like this. With big, huge, like puppy dog eyes, like so almost like looking like she's about ready to cry at any second. Like that's what I think of when I think of innocent. So, how a character looks tells you a lot about what that character is going to be. Okay. Also, what other characters think about? All right, we'll go back to this one. Happy break. What?
No way.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even say anything.
Yeah, you were going
What?
to.
I didn't even say anything.
You were going
I
to.
wasn't even saying anything.
Liar.
All
Oh.
my stuff is on
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. You can set it. Thank you. Hi, Sean. How was your break, Sean?
Good, except for the part where I felt like
Did you have the flu like I did?
I
I did not throw up at all, but I did have a terrible flu. And I couldn't hardly breathe. Yes. And hey.
will shut up.
Oh yeah? Oh, that's so cool. Did you have fun? Yeah. You rode on an elephant?
You
That's
rode?
so cool.
That's so mean.
It's hard to sit on it.
Because they're huge.
That's not very nice.
Was it Did it smell horrible?
No, it is not.
Really?
No.
That's
It's
good.
breeze.
I can never, you go to the zoo and every once in a while you're around certain animals and you can smell them. You don't know if it's because they haven't like cleaned it out or if it's just that particular animal smell. And then go, oh really?
I'm over
Do you have pictures and stuff of you riding on the elephant?
don't remind me. I have that.
I rode on a camel.
Good.
Okay, this
It
is
was
what
2
happened.
hours.
There was this elephant.
There's people behind me. I didn't know.
This elephant actually standing in front of another elephant.
That's how people just ride.
I don't know.
What is wrong with that elephant?
Great.
She has great
Well, thank you.
Yeah, please you did. You did. I have to see.
Nikki wants to say.
Justin, no.
No. Get back. No. Say no.
Overall.
No. No.
Like 7 bags. That would be terrible. Yeah. Like Cheez-Its and Cheez-Its and Goldfish and Jackass Argonauts like Grant has one right there. Nope, outside. Alright. Okay, so back to our discussion on characters. So like I said, you want to be looking at these questions. And these questions are going to be important for you to go back to when you start working on your characters a little bit later today and tomorrow. They're going to be important for you guys to go back to. This is going to help you develop your characters and come up with your character traits and the things to know about your characters. So, a couple examples of, I didn't reset this. All right, so we'll do it backwards. Gentle, or let's start with generous. What are an example, if we had a character who is generous, what would be an example of someone who's generous? How would you tell that that character was generous? How could you tell? Brenna? They give to the poor, okay? What's another way? Sean?
Treat everyone with respect.
Okay. Helping other people. So the example that we have here is a student emptied her bank and gave all her money to Haiti. Okay, she gave all of her money away. Okay? So that would be something that's very generous. What about loyal? What's an example of being loyal? If you're writing a story and you had a character that you wanted to be loyal, how would you write that into the story so I know that that character is a loyal character? Kendall? Okay, so even if the main character is mean to them, they still stick with them. Alright? So Joy has been my friend when times were good and when times were bad. Okay, so this we see an example, an activity that someone's doing, a way of portraying being loyal. Okay? What about gentle? How would you show that somebody's gentle? It's a way of showing that someone is gentle. Okay, someone who doesn't fight. Maybe. Okay? How else? Maybe they're a little shy. Okay. Let me give you a quick example, and then I'll tell you this one. I know already that my daughter is far more gentle than my son. And I know this because it's all based on how they treat another member of my family. Anybody know which one? My dog. My dog. Anybody want to know how? Can anybody guess how my daughter pets the dog? Like this, like you're supposed to pet a dog, right? Really soft, really gentle, right? Anybody want to guess how my son pets the dog?
Oh, I don't know. Is he doing
Making a tail?
He yanks us. My favorite is like, Logan, can you pet Wrigley? He's like, like that's. I said pet him, not beat him to death. So, which is actually like a big deal because my dogs are very small. So, like Logan starts whacking him in the head, and he doesn't like it very much. So an example of gentle is the little girl stroked the cat lovingly. So just quietly, lovingly stroke the cat. It shows that someone is gentle. It tells you a little bit about their character. They're gentle. Respectful. How could you show that someone is respectful? What's something that someone can do to show that they are respectful? Jack? Okay, they put things away. Whether they're at their friend's house or they're at their own house, they put their things away when they're done.
Good manners.
Okay, they have good manners.
Or they don't talk in the future.
Okay, all excellent. Sally always raises her hand and follows the rules. It shows that she's respectful. She raises her hand when she wants to talk. She follows the rules of the classroom and of the school. Okay? How might we show that someone is imaginative? How might we show that someone is imaginative? Brenna? Okay, daydreaming during class. Kendall. They're very creative. Okay. What else? How else can we show that they're imaginative?
They draw not
Okay, so they're drawing, they're being creative. The girl would always imagine going to faraway places. She's always thinking about faraway places. I read a post on Facebook the other day from a friend of my wife's or cousin of my wife's. Their 2-year-old son now has an imaginary friend. I don't remember his name. I'm going to call him Bob because I don't remember his name. I just like the name Bob. But Bob is his imaginary friend, and Bob fits in his hand. Like he can hold him in his hand. He's a little guy, very, very small guy. He can fit in his hand. And the kid did not come up with this all on his own. The dad actually taught it to him as a way of distracting him from doing things he wasn't supposed to do. So let's say he's getting in trouble. He says, well, is that something that Bob would do? And the kid's like, well, no, so I shouldn't do it. So, and then he goes, well, why don't you go play with Bob? And he'll go off and he'll play with Bob. And it's gotten to the point now where the kids actually, and they also were looking for a way. They noticed that when he was playing, he was not very imaginative. He wasn't very creative in the things that they were doing. So they tried to encourage his imagination. So they gave him this imaginary friend. And it's gotten to the point now where now Bob can go with them when they go out places, but he doesn't want other people to steal Bob, so Bob just goes in his pocket. And whenever he goes out of the house, Bob goes in his pocket and goes everywhere with them. And he'll share Bob with his older brother and let his older brother play with Bob. And Bob has adventures and stuff. So they're encouraging his imagination. Doing this, talking about a story like a person like that, shows that the person is imaginative. There's different ways of showing. Absent-minded, disorganized, or careless. How can we describe someone? What is something that someone would do that would show that they're absent-minded, disorganized, and careless? Aditi? Messy locker. Either. Breaks things. Yeah. Forgets something important. I always lose my keys. In fact, I actually locked myself out of my classroom this morning because I left my keys on my desk instead of attaching them to my phone, like normal. I don't normally lose my keys, but it's something that you could say about something. They're distracted. They're absent-minded. They forget things. Mechanical. If we had a character trait of someone being mechanical, do you guys know what that means, mechanical? Okay. How would you exemplify that? Show that someone is mechanical.
Make something cool out of scraps.
Okay, they make something cool out of like scraps. They make something cool. What else?
Always fixing stuff.
Always fixing stuff. My dad repaired my Wii. Okay, something broke, fixed it. Very mechanical. Right? Positive. How would you show that somebody's positive?
Like that person has to encourage someone.
Okay, they're encouraging towards other people. Okay, John believed he would get an A. He's in this class, he won't. But, he believed it. That's great. Good to say about it. Negative. How would you show Ethan? How would you show somebody's negative?
Sentence would be
John
John believing you get an F.
believed he would get an F.
Always like
Okay, always putting people down. Tyler always believed the worst would happen. No matter what, it was going to be the worst. The worst was going to happen. Strict, serious. What are some things that a person could do to be strict or serious? Why so serious? Why? Jack? Okay, so they have no response whatsoever. They don't tell you that it was a bad joke. They don't just laugh. Nothing. What do you do? They scold you. They yell at you. They tell you you're doing something wrong. Well, they overreact to things.
If it's a teacher, they always give you like pop quizzes and tests and stuff.
Okay. Speaking of which, we're going to have pop quiz. Strict, serious. When you did something wrong in Mr. Brown's room, he would give you a look that, and the rest of this says, make you stop. So he would just, all he had to do, he was very strict, very serious. He didn't have to tell you to stop, he just had to give you a look. And you would know, ooh, you don't want to do that. Arrogant or vain. What is something that someone could do that would make them arrogant or vain? Sean. Okay. It means vain.
I thought arrogant was. Doesn't that mean like?
Arrogant and vain basically mean like self-centered. Or they think that they are the best at everything in the world.
Well, one time I was somewhere and I saw this guy walking really weird, which
Okay. Alright. Anything else? What's something that somebody could do that might show that they're arrogant or vain? Kendall? Huh? They could boast about something? Is that what you said? Yeah, that's a. Let me give you an example. One of the new games that we've been playing with my daughter at home is we do where is so and so, and we fill it in. So we do where is mommy, and she'll point to mommy, and say mom. So where is daddy, and she'll point to daddy, and say daddy. Where is Logan, she'll point to him. Where is Wrigley, and if Wrigley's in the room, she'll point to him. If not, she goes. But the best one is vain, arrogant. I ask her, Alexia, where's the princess? She knows. She's a princess. She knows. But if she were to grow up later on in life and be the type of person who truly thinks that they are a princess and they deserve everything in the world and you should give them everything in the world, it's a little vain, a little arrogant. You're very self-centered. The only person you really care about is yourself. So, vain and arrogant. And this one, we have Betty always told her classmates how pretty she was. I'm not pretty, I'm so pretty. Wild. What is something that someone can do to be wild? Always partying. Going crazy. Sean.
Jump off the roof of a house into a pool.
Right, jump off the roof of a house into a pool. Doing things they probably shouldn't be doing. Basically, think 6th grade lunch last year. Wild.
Oh yeah.
David and Jill frequently got into trouble for food fighting.
Let's do this.
It's wild. It's out of control. Okay? Okay. I want you to quickly just take a minute. I want you to just take a minute, quickly think about think about the last book that you read, whatever it was. Now, for most of you, that should be pretty easy because we almost all finished The Giver right before we went to break. So at least you have that to rely on. So I want everybody in the room, and I mean that everybody in the room because I'm going to call on everybody in the room, to think of the last book that they read. And I want you to think of one character from that book. And then I want you to look at this list. It's not a complete list. There's some stuff missing on here. There's some stuff we just can't see. I want you to think of a character trait that exemplifies that person. That is that person. Okay? What we're going to do in just a second, like I said, I want you to think about it. What we're going to do is I'm going to start on one side of the room and I'm going to go around the room. I just want you to tell me the title of the book, the character, and then the one character trait that fits that character. Okay? Yes. You just read The Giver before we went through it. No, you are. That's everybody's read that book. So if you can't think of another book besides The Giver, you can use The Giver. You can use The Outsiders. Any book, you can use the 2 novels we've read in this class. You can use any novel you've read. But I'm going to give you guys a minute to look at the list, think about it, and then I'm going to start calling on people. I will start with Emma afterwards.
No, because I want to just get done with mine so everybody forget.
Oh, that's right.
That's a book I really wanted to read it, but it was kind of like, I already got it. Actually, it wasn't. It was really
All right. Are we ready?
That's a book. It's like black. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Yeah, just black. Like my heart.
That's sad.
Yes, blood. Blood.
No, black.
Black.
Actually, I season it with the hopes and dreams of small children.
I knew it.
Mine's on can't have
The
on
tears.
dreams.
The tears of small children.
Sometimes you scare me.
That's the idea. All right, so let's go ahead and start. You need to give me a book title, a character, and then one of these traits that helps describe that character. Brandon, book title. Okay. Adventurous. Jack.
The Outsiders.
Okay.
Very. Boston.
Boston.
The Giver.
Okay. Indeed.
Outsiders. Tyrion.
Okay.
Legion.
Okay.
The
Either.
Giver. Jonas. Creative and
Just one word. Just one.
like.
You got creative.
What's
right?
that like?
Imaginative.
Yeah, magic.
Anthony.
Giver.
Okay. Character. Okay. Character trait. Okay.
The Outsiders.
Okay.
York Diaries, Mackenzie Hollister. She was rich.
Okay.
Giver.
Okay.
Giver.
A leader.
Outsiders.
Okay. 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 Intelligent. Brave. Confident. Active. Okay. Lindsay.
Ever After High, Raven Queen, Dreamer.
Okay. Sean. Just okay.
Diary of a Wind Kid, Roger is lazy.
Okay. Esther.
The Giver. Jonas' sister. She's
Sure. Patrick. Okay. Gentle. Okay. Ollie. Yeah.
I knew you were gonna say that. Oh my god, I knew it.
All right.
The Giver.
Independent. Hostile. Okay. All of these are different things. One of the things I hope that you noticed is that we did have a lot of. How many of you guys said a character from The Outsiders? A number of you guys said. A couple of you guys said The Outsiders. How many of you guys used a character from The Giver? A bunch of you used a character. In fact, a lot of you even used Jonas or The Giver. You used the same characters, but you could come up with multiple character traits. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some have positive character traits. Some have negative character traits. If I were to ask you to sit down and honestly list off all of the character traits about yourself, all the character traits that you can come up with about yourself, would they all be positive? Would they all be negative? No, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Now, might you have more positive than negative or more negative than positive? Yes. You might have a little bit more than one over the other. But very rarely do we ever see a case in real life where a person is entirely 100% evil or 100% good. We don't see it very often. And so it's the same way in stories. Very rarely do we see stories where we have a character who is 100% evil. There are a few. There are a few. Can anybody think of a character who's 100% evil?
Yes.
Voldemort. Voldemort's the number one person that comes to mind when I think of the 100% evil. Voldemort. Anybody else?
The evil stepsisters.
The evil stepsisters? They do have some redeeming qualities, and there's points in time where you do feel kind of bad for them. They do have some small things. But very rarely do you see somebody, also, very rarely do you see somebody who is entirely good. 100% good, yes. Kronos. He is very close to the definition of evil. Very rarely do you see somebody who's 100% of either one. So you're going to have a mix. So when you start creating your characters, you're going to have a mix of traits. Not everything about every character is going to be positive. They're not always going to do the right thing. They're not always going to be perfect. Sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they just make the story more interesting. Okay? If you have a person who is perfect and always does the right thing, are you going to have a very interesting story? No. No. It's going to be very boring and short. Very, very short. It will read like one of my kids' books that I read to them about monkeys drumming on drums. Very short. And finger songs from drum. Don't. It's one of my kids' favorite stories. Okay, so like I told you, you are going to start writing a story. We're going to start you writing a story. So let's go ahead and get started. I put a version of this on Instagram, yes, because when I imagined what I thought you guys were going to look like coming into school today, you have way more energy than I imagined. I imagined that you would look like most of us walking into school going, oh my goodness, that's the longest break ever. I'm so tired. I really expected a bunch of people, because let me put it this way. During school, do you guys know what time I wake up in the morning when I come here?
5.
I get to the building at 5. I wake up at 3:30.
Oh my God.
I wake up at 3:30. Do you know what time I woke up? Do you know what time I woke up while I was on break? Whenever my babies woke up. Most of the time, like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I would get out of bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, whenever they woke up. So, I was not looking forward to coming in this morning. I hadn't woken up that early. I hadn't woken up to an alarm clock at all over break. 11 o'clock?
Yeah,
So I imagined a whole bunch of little zombie students walking in today. Not quite, it's just sort of, that's what I imagined. I was very surprised at what it was. So here is the beginnings of your story. Winter has come, and with it a terrible new disease.
I was watching a series.
Winter has come. Look outside. Yes, this is where you're starting with your story. This is the basis for every story. This is where you're going to start. I told you I'm going to give you the beginnings, a starting block, and then you're going to go from there. So here's where we are. Winter has come, and with it a terrible new disease. Cabin fever, which is the name of the new disease, has spread through the frozen Midwest, affecting thousands. Thousands are affected by this terrible new disease, cabin fever. Yes. This is, wait, I've got one more for you. Ready? 3 friends are left unaffected. 3 friends are left unaffected. Now, I want to point out a couple of things to you. Do you have to use this much of the story? Yes. This is the framework. Every story is going to start out this way. Now, I'm going to ask you to start creating character charts on 4 characters. Not 3, 4. You have 3 main characters. Right? These are going to be your 3 main characters. Your 4th character is what? What does every good story have? Every good story has 2 things. What 2 things? Check.
As the main group that is there a group that a fourth guy who's like
that element does show up a lot, but that's not what I was thinking. Every good story has two things.
Good guy and a bad guy.
A good guy and a bad guy, a protagonist and an antagonist, a hero and a villain.
What is a bad guy?
I'm giving you your protagonists. You're gonna have three protagonists, three friends, or they don't even really have to be friends. Three acquaintances, three people who are gonna be working together, somehow tied together. Three people. Your antagonist, I'm leaving entirely up to you. However you want to put them into the story, whether it's one person or a group of people, however you want to put them in. So let's say you could have your antagonist could be the leader of all of the people who have cabin fever who are attacking the other three. Your antagonist could be the person who initially infected people with cabin fever. It could be a person who wants to do the right thing, and so the best way to handle all the people who have cabin fever is to kill them all. And these three want to stop him before he does it. However you want to make your antagonist, that's entirely up to you. But there has to be three people, three protagonists. Okay? Three protagonists, yes.
Can it start off with 5 people and the one who dies?
You have to, that's entirely fine. But you're gonna have you're gonna start working on character charts for 3 people today.
Okay.
That's where you're gonna start today.
I just have 4.
Yes.
Can this be like a,
We'll get to the villain later.
can this be like a zombie apocalypse?
Very well could be.
And then 3 friends that are protagonists have to kill them?
That's very possible.
Wait, then what was the antagonist? Stop it!
Yes. What the disease does, how all of that works is going to be entirely up to you. Like what this all looks like is entirely up to you. All I've given you is that it's winter time and that a lot of people have gotten some disease. And 3 people are not affected by the disease. That's all I've given you. What you do with it after that is entirely up to you. But I wanted to give you a starting point. Kendall. You can have more than 3 characters. There just has to be 3, and we're going to work on those 3 in just a minute. Heather. No, it doesn't have to. I haven't given you a title. The disease? The disease has to be called cabin fever. Either.
So they don't have to stay in the water? Like,
It needs to start in the winter.
But it can, like, end up with some random...
Sure. It has to start in the winter. Because think about it. How many of you guys have heard the term cabin fever? What does it mean? What does cabin fever mean? Grant, what does cabin fever mean? You know? Patrick, what does it mean?
Oh, it happens a lot in Alaska when people are like in that it snows really heavy and they can't come out of the house.
Right. It's when you're stuck in your house, you can't move, you can't get out, you can't go do anything, and you start to go a little stir crazy. You start to go, you get really bored. You start to, might have some weird hallucinations. They're going a little crazy. Certain things happen. So cabin fever is a real thing, but it only really happens in the winter. Is when people are stuck inside their houses and can't leave. So your story has to start in winter. Okay.
Okay, I know in the last you can have more than 3 people.
You can have more than 3 people unaffected, but you have to have at least 3. Okay?
Oh.
So if you plan on killing off people, you might want to start off with more than 3. All right. So this is what you're going to start doing. You guys are going to start working on this right now. Okay. One of the first steps of telling a good story is developing good characters. Today we're going to begin this part. In this picture, you see this is from the Game of Thrones. You see the leader of in this it's a group of undead. But you see the leader of the undead, and then the massive undead people walking. That's me, by the way, and you guys know.
That's kind of scary.
So, we have a character chart, and we're going to start filling these out. Probably, we only have about 10 minutes left, so we might get to some of it today, but maybe not. This is our character chart. You're going to make one of these for all of your main characters, for all 4 of your main characters. Hopefully we'll have time to start the 3 protagonists today. Can anybody tell me who this character is and what they're from?
It's the dad from Nemo.
It's the dad from Nemo, right? Marlin, the dad from Nemo. How many of you guys knew his name? I didn't know his name. I didn't know his name. I didn't remember his name. When I read it, I was like, oh, who's Marlon? How did I figure out what movie it was? Right, I read the events, the things that was, what you guys are gonna have to do is you're gonna start here with this. You're gonna start with your character chart, right? You're gonna identify your character. You're gonna name your character. You can name your character whatever you want to name your character. You're gonna name your character. Then you need to come up with 3 character traits that describe that character. Now let's look at our character Marlon. There's 3 character traits about Marlon. He's overprotective, he's determined, and he's cautious. Are all those things good things? No. Are all of them bad things? No. They're a mix. Okay? His character is what we call a dynamic character. He is a dynamic character, which means he has multiple levels. He has things that are good about him, and he has things that are bad about him. He's a dynamic character. A flat character would be a character that's entirely good. Has no bad parts about him. Entirely good. Or entirely evil. Very flat. Not very dynamic. There's not a lot of levels to it. They're just bad. Right? What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to think of your characters. Think of your characters, come up with, name your characters, and then you're going to need to come up with 3 character traits about them. 3 ways of describing them. Now, I want you to understand when I say character traits, I don't mean tall. Tall is not a character trait. It's a description. It's a physical description. It is not a character trait. I know it was listed on the other set, but pretty, beautiful, not necessarily character traits. They can be, but they more describe the way a person looks. I want you to describe who that person is. Okay? As we know, we are all more than what we look like. So who is your person? Not what do they look like. So you're coming up with 3 character traits. But then, as we get a little bit further on, we won't get to this today, or we might get to it tomorrow. You need to start developing ways of showing those things. Remember, like we did with our cards earlier that were on the board. We had a word that someone was gentle, and we figured out a way of showing that someone was gentle. In Finding Nemo, Marlin is overprotective. Now, if I were a person writing that movie, and I wrote, Marlin's overprotective, but then I never showed him doing anything overprotective, would anybody watching the movie understand that he's overprotective? No. You have to demonstrate it in some way. So, in Finding Nemo, they demonstrate it in 3 different ways. He doesn't let Nemo go to the edge of the reef. He holds Nemo's hand on the way to the school, and he didn't want Nemo to play with the other fish. These are all things that are normal, that a normal parent wouldn't necessarily do. But he's not a normal parent. He's overprotective. And so he does all of these things to keep Nemo safe. Okay? So you need to start thinking about some of the things that your character would do. What are some of the things your character would do? What are some of the things your character would say? What are some of the ways here you can start talking about how your character looks is one of the things that you can do. Because just like we talked about, how a character looks goes into describing your character. Okay? This is where we're going to start today. Maybe not. Is naming your characters. Naming your characters, coming up with your 3 character traits. Later, we're going to fill these out by going back to these questions. Going back to these questions. How do we determine a character's character traits is by asking these questions. What does your character say or do? If you have a character that's loyal, what do they say or do to prove that they're loyal? If you have a character that is sad, what do they say? How do they think or feel to show that they are a sad character? If you have a character that is cruel, what might they look like to show that they are cruel? What might a character look like that is evil? What do the other characters think about the character? If you have a character that's trustworthy, how do the other characters show that, demonstrate that? And finally, how does the character make you feel? What are some of the things that the character can do that make you feel a certain way? I know I've been referencing it a lot. I'm going to go back to it one last time. And I only do this because it's such an amazing example of character. In the Game of Thrones series, in A Song of Fire and Ice, there's a character who in the first 2 to 2.5 books, you kind of hate. You loathe, really. Like, hate's not even quite strong enough. You really do not like this character. They're extremely self-centered. They only think of what's good for themselves and their close family. They are overly confident and arrogant. They think that they're the greatest in the world, and nobody can touch them. And they cause a lot of harm to other characters that you actually really like. They hurt a lot of the characters. This particular character hurts a lot of other characters you really like. You don't like him. You do not want him. He's a member of the bad family, the evil family in the town. And one of the chief characters. And you do not like him. But somewhere right around halfway through book 3, something happens. He's a knight. He's a warrior. And he gets his hand cut off. He gets his sword hand cut off. And he can no longer use a sword. The one thing that he was extremely good at, the only thing he was extremely good at, he loses. And it completely changes his character. It completely changes his character. And all of a sudden, different things he starts thinking about things differently and making different choices and looking at things differently and starts becoming a much more dynamic character. And now he's at the point where you hope he lives. You want to see him make it through the rest of the story. You hope he lives. I hope he lives. I wouldn't have said that in book 1. By the end of book 1, I wanted him dead. Halfway through book 1, I wanted him dead immediately. Somebody needed to drive a lance through his eye. I was very much opposed to his continuing on in the story. Unfortunately, he continued on, and he made a change. So, if you want a character to feel, or if you want a person to feel a certain way about a character, if you want a person to hate a particular character to the point where they are hoping that they die in the next chapter, what are some things that you can do with that character to make people feel that way? How do you do that? How do you make a person feel that way about your character? Those are the things that you're going to start thinking about. You're going to start answering these questions tomorrow. Okay? We can start a little bit today. Well, 2 minutes. What? Huh? 4 minutes. Tomorrow when we come in, we're going to start with these. I'm going to pull these up, the chart up for you, so you can start copying down that same chart. You're going to start naming your characters tomorrow. So be thinking about that tonight. What do you want to name your characters? What kind of story do you want this to be? What do you want to name your characters? Also, what kind of character traits should they have? How are these characters going to interact and act with each other? What character traits can we say about them? Okay? So that's where we're going to start tomorrow. Any questions? Any questions about the story itself? Anybody dreading writing the story?
No, I'm very excited. Just a bit know what
You're
direction
ready,
is going to feature in this story.
What?
What direction is going to feature in this story?
Yeah, I hope they die in the first chapter.
No.
Watch your favorite one with the guy who's like 3 minutes.
No, Liam's dying. I'm gonna kill him. No, I'm leaving. I will.
Yeah, everybody on
in the middle of the zombie apocalypse.
No.
Zombies are stupid.
One Direction makes my picture.
They're gonna be.
I have passed this
They're
last
gonna be
year.
twice that.
So fun. Brandon. Here.
Braden doesn't want to talk to you, Connor.
Why?
Nobody nobody wants to argue.
Our side of the table talking, Tyler and Anna.
Notice how much further away I got you from this time?
Not that far.
Why? Because that was.
That was all Emily's fault. That was all Emily's fault.
I'm gonna run it. It's here. I have here.
Mr. Binder, it's Emily's fault. You're so bad. She kept kicking you.
Right.
So many times.